Donald Trump does not do subtle. And what else would Donald Trump do but big himself up when he formally announced the passing of the Genius Act in America? He said, "It's a law so good, they named it after me." Yeah, really. Anyway, it's a big deal, the Genius Act, because it is a bit of a milestone in all things crypto. Now, effectively, what the Genius Act does is establish and regulate stablecoins in the US. Now, stablecoins are a form of cryptocurrency in that they are based on blockchain ledger technology, so a bit like Bitcoin, but unlike Bitcoin, they're not based on thin air. They are backed by a real asset. And Peter, that's why some people are taking them quite seriously as a potential disruptor, not just to the kind of zany crypto world, but the financial services market as a whole.
They are. So the Genius Act basically backs them using US Treasury bills, short term, or actual US physical money.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the valuation is sound and doesn't vary, or varies very little if they're backed by treasuries. So you can actually trade them instantly using blockchain, so you don't have the delays that you would have if you've got a cash transaction. And also you avoid the charges if you're using a normal transaction, if you're using retail deposits, where you're actually getting charged 1 or 2% by the retail provider.
Yeah, and that's a key change, because this kind of elevates it from being more than just a kind of speculative asset,
Yes.
like Bitcoin. It's actually a genuine medium of exchange, so
It is.
a bit like money. And that's the thing that the banks are most excited about. There are some who are saying that as long as a stablecoin is backed by a real asset, anyone can issue them. So banks
Yes.
could potentially issue a stablecoin as long as it's backed by their own cash reserves. And that opens the door potentially to instant and virtually free transactions cross borders, transactions between banks and retailers. I mean, this is a big deal. Now, America is very much in the forefront here. I guess my question to you is there any chance of this coming across the Atlantic to Europe?
Well, I think at the moment there's lots of concern about the legislation as it's been passed, because obviously if you're using cash, if you're using credit cards, you've got lots of security around, what happens if it goes wrong. So you've got the physicality of cash, you've got the physicality of using a credit card, and then if there's a problem with the transaction or a problem with the bank, you've got recourse around it. Now, obviously there's legislation set up around checking that the financial provider has a certain level of assets to back that up. But what happens if the underlying organization that's providing the stablecoin goes under? It's very unclear about what recourse you've got. That the person issuing the stablecoin goes down, goes back, you don't have the same recourse.
Yeah.
So there's concern about what happens around the providers of stablecoin. Does it have the same recourse, to getting your money back?
So in the example of this US stablecoin, yes, it's ultimately backed by the dollar and US treasuries, but it isn't issued by the Federal Reserve.
No, it's a derivative. Yeah. So the problem is it's not, you do not have the same guarantees, you do not have the same sort of recourse back to the original, because it is a derivative of a treasury bill, it is a derivative of ultimately the cash.
Yeah.
So there's concerns around that, and also there's concerns around ultimately you're taking the control away from central banks, because there's someone other than central banks issuing money effectively.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's one of the reasons that Christine Lagarde, the chairwoman of the ECB, has said she does not want to see commercial banks starting to issue stablecoins, because ultimately it could dislodge central banks. If commercial banks have got their own currencies, why would you need a common currency? So clearly a lot of concern amongst central bankers. Andrew Bailey here at the Bank of England, he's expressed similar reservations. So yes, Donald Trump is a big supporter. We all know he loves his crypto. He's got his own Trump coins and his kind of crazy meme coins. But stablecoin is supposedly different. At least that's what the Americans are saying, and that's what this Genius Act says.
Yes.
I get the impression that you think there is still an awful long way to go before we see them here in Britain.
The general feeling is it's very early days. There needs to be a lot more checks and balances put in place, and a lot more consumer protection, particularly on the consumer side of things. Doesn't mean it won't happen. I think it's just probably too early.
Okay, yes. Well, watch this space for that one. Another reason why you should watch this space is that on the next edition of the Rate Stuff, we're going to have a real live expert in the studio here with us. Yes, would
Yes.
you believe? Yes, we've got one of Britain's leading surveyors coming in to talk to us about all things property market. Matthew Cumber, the Managing Director of Countrywide, will take your questions. Peter, I've got some of the questions. I'm sure you have
Absolutely.
too. If you're watching and you would like to ask Matthew anything about the property market, where house prices might go, how much mortgage interest rates really matter when it comes to where people choose to live or when to buy, do drop us a line. Get in touch via our socials. Make sure you give us a like or a follow. They really matter to us. They make it easier for us to get the message about mortgages out there. But for now, join us next time with Matthew Cumber here on The Rate Stuff.